Everybody, Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college basketball, and today it is Tuesday, January the 20th. We are coming off a really fun Martin Luther King Day, ton of daytime basketball, and it continues again tonight. If you like this content, please consider subscribing to the channel or leaving a like on the video. Those two things help a small channel like this immensely. It gets us in front of new viewers and just allows us to keep going. So thank you if you've done that. Last thing, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. We do discuss sides and totals throughout the breakdown. But let's dive right in. There's a lot of good games tonight. We are going to touch on 7 today. If you ever want to hear about a game in advance, a great way to make sure I get to it is just leaving a comment. Tell me what you want to hear about tomorrow. But let's dive in. SEC clash between Vanderbilt and Arkansas to kick us off here. We have Arkansas as a 1 point favorite, 1.5 points, depending on where you look. And the total in this game is 173. Tempo is going to be very fast. Both teams are top 50 there. Resume-wise, we've seen Vandy drop to 16-2. They've now lost their last 2 games. Respectably, though, Texas is number 40 in the country. Florida is number 9, and especially that Florida game came down to the wire. It was 98-94. So Vandy currently comes in 12th in the country. We use KenPom for these rankings, not the AP or anything like that. It just comes down to accuracy. If you want to use something else, I get it, but we're going to use KenPom. So they've dropped their last 2 games. They have one top 25 win over Alabama, 96-90, who was shorthanded in that game. Who are their other best wins? They do have a couple top 50 wins: Central Florida, VCU, St. Mary's, SMU, LSU. The redeeming part about that is most of those wins were convincing. Double digits or close to it. It's actually the 26th ranked strength of schedule for Vandy, and they do have 4 road wins, which is important because they're going to hit the road here against Arkansas, who's number 23 in the country at 13-5. Mostly respectable losses. Michigan State, Duke, and Houston are top 10 teams. Then you have Auburn and Georgia sitting at 33-28. They do have 3 top 25 wins over Louisville, Texas Tech, and Tennessee. It's the 9th ranked strength of schedule. And overall, the body of work is a little more complete for Arkansas, even though they have more losses than Vanderbilt, just based on the schedule. So, stylistics. Big thing with Vanderbilt is they play a small lineup. They are 270th in height. They still are 81st in rebounding. Arkansas is 69th in height, 98th in rebounding. So there's actually an edge towards Vanderbilt. But Arkansas is an elite offensive rebounding team. It's going to be a fun matchup there because Vandy does prioritize the defensive glass where they're 49th. And shooting-wise, Vandy's going to bomb threes. They're 88th in three-point rate, 39th in three-point percentage, 15th in effective field goal percentage overall. Tyler Nickel is hitting 47% of his threes. Tyler Tanner is at 40. A.K. Okereke is not far behind. Vandy plays really fast. They get out in transition. And when they're playing in the half court, they're going to attack you through pick and roll. None of those are strengths of Arkansas defensively, who comes in 76th. They are 237th inside and 75th on the perimeter. The pick and roll stuff is going to be a big problem in this game unless something changes for Arkansas. Meanwhile, on the other side, very impressed with the Razorbacks offensively. 38th overall in effective field goal percentage, 18th in three-point percent. They don't shoot a ton of threes, but man, this team, and they space you. Darius Acuff is at 41%. Malik Thomas is at 40. Trevon Brazil, 41. Carter Knox, 42. That's your three-point percentages for those 4. And then with Brazil and Knox especially, gives you a lot of spacing. Inside, Malik Ewan's playing really well. They're another team that plays fast and will get in transition. But they're more than comfortable to play in isolation a little bit more than most teams. Vanderbilt defends this fairly well, and they're 19th overall. 91st inside, 9th on the perimeter. So I think there's micro advantages for Vandy on both sides, offense and defense. Neither team turns the ball over. Vandy forces more of them. They're 84th. Arkansas is 193rd. Vandy does foul, especially like with McLaughlin and Washington inside, but Arkansas is 203rd in fouls generated. This does not project to be a major point in the game. We show value on Vandy. We actually make this about minus one-ish in their favor. 87.1 to 86.5 is the projected score. I'm debating playing a Vandy. Just have it right now with the home court, but we're semi-close to laying this number. Next up, where are we going next? The Big 12. Texas Tech takes on Baylor. 2-point spread in favor of the road team, Texas Tech, 154.5 total. We did play an over on this pacing. Both these teams are around 152 currently. Texas Tech has sped up. Baylor's remained about constant. So that's where we stand since December 1st. On the year, Texas Tech is 186th. The only major injury in this game, Luke Bamboy has been out for Texas Tech. That kind of reduces their size. Baylor's fairly healthy. To get here, Texas Tech is 14-4. Their losses are all pretty redeemable, all top 25. Illinois, Purdue, Arkansas, and Houston. All of those were either at neutral or on the road. Their best wins are over Duke and BYU. It was an incredible BYU win over the weekend, who is sitting at number 15 in the country. Kind of solidifies their body of work a little bit. Their only other top 50 wins other than those two it's LSU. So it has not been the best body of work in wins. But even in those losses we talked about outside of the Purdue game, Texas Tech remained competitive and kept them to single digits, which is how they come in 21st in the country. It's a good body of work for Texas Tech. Baylor, meanwhile, they have, I don't know the best way to put this, stumbled a little bit this year. It's definitely not been what they wanted. They are still 11-6. Losses are to St. John's, Memphis, TCU, Iowa State, Houston, and Kansas. 2 of those are outside the top 50 with Memphis and TCU. They have one top 50 win over San Diego State on a neutral. They also have a win over Washington. It's not the best body of work, but the strength of schedule is 17th. Neither of these teams are particularly tall. Texas Tech, 304th in height. Baylor's 249th. But both of them are pretty good rebounding. Baylor comes in 48th. Texas Tech comes in 72nd. So that it's more of an effort thing with these two teams and a positioning thing, especially with like a JT Toppin. He's a very good rebounder. And starting with Texas Tech, 46th in effective field goal percentage. They're 24th in three-point percent. And then you know what Toppin is going to give you inside. He's absolutely dominant down there. But the offense is coming along. Christian Anderson, 43% from three. Donovan Atwell, 41%. Jalen Petty, 37%. They can go inside and out on you. Baylor is 135th in total defense. They're weaker defending the three, 142nd there. And despite not being tall, and they don't have any good defenders either, 0 in the top 50 of the Big 12, they do dedicate a lot of resources to stopping you at the basket, leaving them kind of vulnerable to threes. Texas Tech will take those. On the other side, Baylor is 65th in effective field goal, 39th in three-point percent, but they're only 193rd in three-point rate. You have 2 good shooters in Cameron Carr and Obi Agbim, 44 and 40% from three. But this is it's a small team. They've had to go out and add G League help, if that's the right way to phrase that, this offseason or midseason, really. It hasn't mattered. This is a guard-reliant team. They use a lot of perimeter cutting. I mean, this is what Texas Tech tries to force you into anyway, so I don't really think this is a good matchup. Texas Tech's 33rd in total defense. Toppin, for being slightly undersized, is a good rim protector. They'll let you shoot, and Baylor's not the best at shooting, and they're not really trying to as much as you'd think anyway. Neither team turns the ball over often. Texas Tech is a little better there. For turnovers forced, it's 39 versus 124, so slight edge Texas Tech. Neither team fouls often. Baylor does generate more. They're 64th in fouls generated, which you're not going to see a deep bench for Texas Tech. So they've been pretty good at limiting fouls. If for whatever reason they get in foul trouble, this could get out of hand in favor of Baylor, but that is not likely. Again, tempos around the 150s for both of these teams when isolating conference play. We have a score of 80.3 for Texas Tech to 78.8 for Baylor, making the over playable. And Texas Tech, I lean that direction. Baylor's kind of been in free fall, but we're just going to stick with the over at 154.5 for this game. Back to the SEC for Georgia, Missouri. This line is flipped overnight. Missouri was a 1-point favorite. Now Georgia is. 164.5 is the total, no major injuries. Another fast game. Georgia's second in tempo. Missouri's 217th, but they'll run a little bit. Georgia's 28th overall, picked up a big win over the weekend. Their losses now are to Clemson, Florida, and Ole Miss. The Ole Miss game was in overtime. It was a 2-point loss. That's their only loss outside the top 25, and Ole Miss is still 60th. You now have 2 top 50 wins. Auburn, they beat in overtime, and they just knocked off Arkansas over the weekend by 14. Third best win is probably Cincinnati, but this schedule is not very strong. It's 150th. Missouri is not much better in terms of strength of schedule. They're 124th. Their record is 13-5. Took a bad loss to Notre Dame in non-conference. Then lost to Kansas, Illinois, Ole Miss, and LSU. All of those are defendable. Best wins? This team somehow beat Florida by 2 at home. They beat Kentucky, who's number 24, and Auburn. So they do have some pretty good wins. These teams are kind of similar in ways and then not in others. They're both pretty tall. Georgia's 49th in height, Missouri's 16th. Both of them are good rebounding. Georgia's 85th, Missouri's 33rd. They both attack the offensive glass at a top 50 rate. Georgia is only 286 defensive rebounding, and Missouri's 141st. I'm not going to read too much into those stats. We already mentioned height. It seems just more of a small sample thing to me, but we'll get more information in this matchup where both teams will attack the glass. Georgia plays a weird style of offense. They're 61st in effective field goal percent, but they can't really shoot. They're 246th in three-point percentage, but still they're 107th in three-point rate. First of all, they're going to try to play in transition, but then when they're not, this team is basically living on the offensive glass. They'll throw up threes, and they've been so good offensive rebounding, they get extra possessions. Missouri's pretty good at defending those areas, but if you can get Marcus Millender, who's at 39% from three, or Jeremiah Wilkinson at 37%, to hit their threes, that's how Georgia wins this game. Blue Kane is still their most efficient offensive player. Surreal is a very good offensive rebounder. And Missouri on defense is 290th on the perimeter. They have one good defender. It's their point guard, Anthony Robinson. They're going to try to stop you at the rim and let you shoot threes. Georgia's going to happily take those. It's just a matter of, do they actually hit them today? It's been volatile for them. We'll see on that. Missouri is 12th in effective field goal percentage, 13th inside, 49th from three. They do not shoot very many threes. 224th in rate stats out there. Jacob Cruz is hitting 47% of his threes, and Jalen Stone's at 43.5. But neither of those guys even plays full-time. Their best offensive player is actually Mark Mitchell, who's 6'9", plays more of like a wing and a four spot. They use a lot of high-lows, pick and rolls, pick and pops. Georgia's pretty good at defending those. They're actually 48th overall in total defense. 29th inside. A lot of that comes from the rim protection, some from Surreal, who plays their center spot. But Justin Abson and Dylan James aren't that far behind. So let you shoot over the top. Missouri doesn't want to do that, but they're still pretty good at it. So I think they can have some success here. As far as the periphery, Georgia is aggressive on defense. They're 32nd in turnovers forced, and they are 51st in turnovers generated. Or excuse me, they're 32nd in turnovers committed. That's a good stat. The lower it is, the better. And then they're 51st in turnovers generated. Missouri is worse in both of those areas. They're 253rd in turnovers committed, 176th in turnovers forced. It's kind of the same thing with fouls. These are micro edges to Georgia's direction that you might not look at in the normal box scores. But they force a lot of turnovers. They don't get in foul trouble. It's a pretty good Georgia team outside of their lack of shooting. We currently have this spread right around 1 ourselves. We make it Georgia 84 to Missouri 82.8. Should have just played this overnight, but was a little nervous with Georgia hitting the road. We do lean at Georgia -1 in this spot. We'll wait on anything else and see where this game goes throughout the day. SMU takes on Wake Forest. This game's a pick'em. Total's 160, no major injuries. Boobie Miller, he was sick for a bit recently. He's getting further and further away from that. I like SMU quite a bit in the spot despite playing on the road. This team does not have the best strength of schedule. It's 28th, and a lot of it is built through like middle of the pack teams. But overall, I'm still pretty impressed with the body of work. Their losses are to Vanderbilt, LSU, Clemson, Duke, and Virginia. All of those are top 50, and 4 of them are top 25. Do they have any good wins? They have a couple top 50 wins over A&M and OT in North Carolina, who's number 36. Wish they had picked up one of those wins against an elite team, but just ultimately couldn't get there. The Clemson, Duke, and Virginia game were all single digits too, so SMU is right there in some of those contests. Currently, they're 35th in the country. Wake Forest is 11-7. They are the 61st ranked team in the country. Losses to Michigan by 1, actually. Texas Tech by 1. Oklahoma, they lost by more. Vanderbilt, they got blown out. NC State, they lost by 13. Miami, they lost by 4. North Carolina, they lost by 3. So what started out as some pretty good overall losses in the beginning of the year sort of snowballed out of control and got into some worse losses. But anyway, that's still a lot of very good teams. Of their 7 losses, only 1 is outside the top 50, and that was to Oklahoma, who's 58. They do not have a top 50 win, however, and they have 3 wins in the top 100. 2 of them are decent. West Virginia and Virginia Tech are top 60, but Memphis is number 90th. This Wake Forest team comes in 35th in strength of schedule. But overall, I think it's kind of a bad matchup for Wake Forest. SMU is really tall. They're 23rd in height, 75th in rebounding. Wake Forest is 212th in height, 221st in rebounding, so that's your first SMU advantage. Offensively, SMU is a pretty good shooting team. They're 43rd in effective field goal percent, 76th in three-point percent, but they're almost never shooting threes. 315th in the amount of attempts they get up. But Boopy Miller and Corey Washington are decent when asked to do so. But most of this offense is just B.J. Edwards, Boopy Miller playing a two-man game. Boopy Miller and B.J. Edwards are awesome offensively. They play a lot of inside out. Wake Forest is decent at limiting that. Their 2 best defenders are wing defenders, Trayvon Spillers and Juke Harris, who are both 6'7". That kind of works in their favor, but they're still 309th inside. If you can get to the basket on this team, you can absolutely score on Wake Forest. SMU is going to try to get towards the basket. Maybe they'll play a little bit through their center today, Yigatolu. We'll see on that. Wake Forest is 130th in field goal percentage, effective field goal that is, 204th in 3. They shoot a lot of threes. They're 95th in three-point rate. They're just not very good at shooting them. They're 90th in two-point percent, but most of this, at least their offense, is playing in transition and then missing threes and getting them on the glass. SMU is a good rim protector in Samit Yigatoglu. He's 7'2". He's a good rebounder. I'm not sure hunting offensive boards is the most efficient way to play against this team. And you're already working at a disadvantage with the rim protection they provide. You kind of need to hit threes. And Nate Calmise is at 40%. Miles Colvin's at 37%. I don't know if it's enough for Wake Forest. In the periphery, neither team turns the ball over much. Wake Forest has forced a lot of them. They're 12th in turnovers forced. But this is sort of neutralized on the opposite end. Wake Forest commits a lot of fouls. SMU does not. Pacing, both pretty good. SMU's 130th. Wake Forest is 88th. Our model has this 79.7 to 79.2 in favor of SMU, which is how we get a pick 'em here. Line hasn't moved much, so I think you can absolutely play this. Total, not really anything I'm looking at in this game. Maybe the game of the day, some would argue. Miami, Ohio is putting their undefeated record on the line against Kent State. The spread is -1 against Miami, Ohio, in favor of Miami, Ohio on the road. 168.5 is the total. Only major injury is Evan Ipsaro. He's been out for a while for Miami, Ohio. We already knew that. Despite being undefeated, this team is only 94th in KenPom. How, you may ask? Well, they have played the 350th ranked strength of schedule. I've heard a lot about Miami, Ohio does not deserve to be in the tournament if they lose 3-ish games. I kind of agree. You can't go out and schedule a bunch of teams in the 300s, lose 3 games, and expect to be in. You kind of have to, I mean, they'll have other opportunities to rise in strength of schedule in their conference and whatnot, but I don't know, man. You got to schedule a little better than 350th. There's only 15 teams worse than you in your schedule. It's kind of alarming, I would say, making them a fade candidate at some point, but this is not the game for that, in my opinion. They have 1 top 100 win. It's over Akron, who's still actually 62nd in the MAC, much higher, about 32 spots higher than Miami, Ohio overall in power rankings. Miami, Ohio was at home in that game, which helped them. They've needed 2 overtime wins this year. They beat Buffalo over the weekend, and they took some crazy shot making, buzzer beaters to even get that win. They also beat UNC Asheville, who's 237. That required overtime. Their other decent wins are Toledo, Bowling Green, Wright State. All of those are top 160 teams, but overall, it's a questionable body of work. Now, is it much better for Kent State? No. They have 8 top 200 wins, but their schedule is 294th. They have 4 losses, Troy at 111, Portland at 196, Purdue, of course, and Central Michigan is really the bad one, 321. That score was 87-85. Kent State was on the road. Best wins, they beat Bowling Green, they beat Wright State in OT, and they beat Wilmington. All that is solid for this Kent State team. So let's look at some of the style. We'll start with height. Miami, Ohio is 189th. Kent State is 239th. Rebounding, Kent State is actually 64th to Miami, Ohio's 117th. Kent State is very aggressive on the offensive glass. They are 52nd there, but that is exact. Miami, Ohio is the opposite. They're not going to go after the offensive glass, but they'll really prioritize defensively. They're 25th. So how does that matchup play out? Miami, Ohio is number 1 in effective field goal percent. Top 10 inside and from 3. They shoot a ton of threes, 48th in three-point rate. Peter Suter, Almer Atlason, Brant Byers, and Ian Elmer are all at 39% or better. And that they have an excellent point guard and facilitator, which is a surprise because their real point guard got hurt, their main one. Lucas Galjak has been an awesome facilitator. On defense, Kent State is 224th. Not good anywhere. They're 340th at defending the 3. Their best player inside is Delrico Gillespie, who's 6'8". He's actually a pretty good rim protector. But Miami, Ohio is going to shoot the ball over the top of you. Being 340th at three-point percentage, opponent three-point percentage is a major concern. When Kent State has the ball, they are 68th in effective field goal, 95th in two-point percent, 65th from 3. They'll also shoot a ton of threes, 52nd in three-point rate. Quinn Watke, Jahari Williamson are the 2 main three-point shooters. Williamson especially is at 49%. Morgan Stafford's not too far behind at 36%. And they also have a pretty good point guard and facilitator in Cian Medley. He is 35th in the country in assist rate. I'm not worried about Kent State scoring, but Miami, Ohio's defense is significantly better than Kent State's. They're 115th and 156th inside, 119th on the perimeter. They're pretty good everywhere. They do have a good rim protector in Antoine Wilfork. He's a P5 transfer coming down. Ian Elmer solid on the wing. They are vulnerable in transition, which these teams are both very fast. Miami, Ohio is 44th. Kent State is 17th. But there's enough advantages here for Miami, Ohio. Then you get to the periphery, significant advantage in the turnovers for Miami, Ohio. Fouls, both teams rarely foul. We'll see on this. Overall, we took a +1 with Miami, Ohio last night. It is -1. I think you can still play that. We make the score 86.7 to 84.3. So a -1 is just fine, but we did play a +1. If you're ever interested in that, where everything goes first is to the Discord. The link is below. We also have a lot of analysis some of you might be interested in. We project every single game, side, total, team totals, and then we do the major games all the way down to the player level. So those of you that play props, you're going to find minutes, points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, everything you can imagine for all of the major games. Today we'll have the top 18 games projected down to the player level. That's always available in the description for those of you that are interested. Been told I don't mention it enough, and no one knows about it. So there you go. I'm not a big promoter, so that is what it is. Kansas, Colorado. 5-point spread in favor of the Jayhawks, 155 total. Kansas has sort of rebounded from a little bit of struggles to begin the year. They are currently 19th. Getting back DP has helped them a ton. Currently 13-5. Their losses, North Carolina, Duke, UCF, West Virginia. Those are their main ones. The 2 questionable ones, UCF and West Virginia. They've happened recently, but since then, they've turned in wins over Iowa State, Tennessee, Baylor, NC State. Pretty good wins. Especially the Iowa State one was last week. They dominated that game. It was on their home floor. But 84-63, solid showing for this Kansas team against a very good opponent at the time who was top 3. Now they've dropped to number 8. They do only have one true road game this year, which was settled in overtime. But overall, Kansas has the second-ranked strength of schedule. Even with some of the concerns we've seen, this is a good body of work. You don't get to be number 19 at KenPom without it. So all the concerns aside, all the criticism aside, I know people love to talk about it. This is a good team. Colorado is 79th. They're 12-6. Losses kind of all over the board. They have some good ones like Texas Tech, but they also have Colorado State, who's 93rd. Stanford at 72nd. Northern Colorado at 175th. There's some bad losses here. They've also lost 3 straight. They've also lost 5 of their last 7. They only have 3 wins in the top 100 over Providence, Washington, and Arizona State. None of those teams are in the top 50. The schedule overall is 92nd. I'm not sure about this resume. They are similar in terms of size and rebounding. Kansas is 52nd in height. Colorado's 5th. Both teams are in the top 100. In rebounding, 95 and 97. It's very close there. Kansas, most of their shooting stats have positively regressed since they got back Darren Peterson. 82nd in total effective field goal, 69th from 3. They don't shoot a ton of threes, but when they do, it's mostly Darren Peterson and Trey White, both above 40%. Floyd Badunga dominates the paint from that dunker spot. They play a lot in transition. They're very good in the pick and roll with Badunga. Colorado is 159th in total defense, 253rd on the perimeter. They're okay with their rim protection with Bangad Doc at 7 feet, but I'm not even sure that's enough to stop Badunga. There's some pretty significant weaknesses to this defense that Kansas can exploit. Colorado, 72nd in effective field goal percentage, just barely inside the top 100 in both 2-point and 3-point percent. They do not shoot threes, 328th in three-point rate. I mean, Isaiah Johnson and Barrington Hargress are pretty good shooters from 3, but neither is more than 61 attempts. The offense is built off basically rebounding and scrambling. I don't know. It's kind of a weird way that they play. They get a lot of 2-point shots off. Kansas is 9th in total defense, 17th inside, 10th on the perimeter. Badunga is the second best overall defender in the conference behind JoJo Tugler. He's going to protect your rim. It's going to be tough for Colorado to score. Neither team turns the ball over often. Colorado does generate a lot of fouls, but Kansas is rarely in foul trouble. Tempo is moderate. Kansas 179, Colorado 104. Our score projection is 80.9 for Kansas to 74.4 for Colorado. Still showing value if you can find this at 5. We played a 4.5 last night in this game. We'll do one more game before we get out of here. Fun one here. The upstart UCF is taking on Iowa State. The spread in the game is 14. The total is 156. Realize we have little typo on the screen. I'll correct that as we go. But I was very interested in this game before seeing the Jamichael Stillwell news. They listed him as doubtful for this game. He's a very important rim protector for this team, and he is the team's best defender overall. So initially, we had this game with a spread of 12.3. I gave this an extra point in favor of Iowa State for the injury, but I'm not sure if that's enough. Currently, the line is 14, so this suggests that maybe he's worth a little bit more, but we'll see on that. To get here, UCF has played really well this year. They're 14-3. Losses are to Vanderbilt, Oklahoma State, and Arizona. That's only one outside the top 50. They have top 50 wins over Texas A&M and Kansas. Schedule's only 49th overall, but I mean, the Texas A&M and they also played Kansas State on the road. That's 2 road wins for this team. It's been pretty impressive. Now, Iowa State's been very impressive as well. Outside of their last 2 games, they've dropped the last 2 to Kansas and Cincinnati. They have top 25 wins over St. John's, Purdue. They killed Purdue in Purdue's building, and they beat Iowa by 4. It's the 60th ranked strength of schedule for Iowa State. Overall, very impressive. So height-wise, UCF is very tall, 26th in height, 20th in rebounding. That helps them a ton. but they're going to be thinner without Stillwell, who's 6'8", plays in the interior. Both teams attack the offensive glass well. Iowa State's also 59th in height, 28th in rebounding. Shooting-wise, UCF is a lot better than we thought. 59th, 28th in three-point percent. They don't shoot a ton of them. They're 282nd there. But Riley Kugel, Jordan Burks are both above 38%. Demas Fulks is very good. A lot of the offense plays in transition and then just cleaning up the glass. Again, Stillwell's their best rebounder too, so this is going to hurt. Iowa State is 18th in total defense, top 100 everywhere. They're also very good on the glass and limit transition, so this is a good defensive matchup for them. Might be tough for UCF to score. And then when Iowa State has the ball. 13th in effective field goal. Fourth in three-point percentage. Don't shoot a ton of them. 257th in three-point rate, but Milan Momcilovic is still at 52%. Josh Jefferson's at 36%. A lot of the offense just comes through Tim and Lipsy and Jefferson creating. They're elite there, creating open looks for shooters like Momcilovic. They play in transition. They board well. They play inside out. UCF is 84th in total defense, 192nd inside and 98th in the perimeter. And now you're removing your best interior defender. So I'm not sure about this matchup. Iowa State forces the 5th most turnovers. They're rarely in foul trouble. UCF doesn't struggle with either of those, but Iowa State's ranked really high. Micro advantages there. Tempo-wise, both teams are pretty fast, 101 to 135. We still show a little value on UCF, but again, this is dependent on how much you think Stillwell is worth, as he's listed doubtful. But that will do it for the main bets. I'm going to rapid fire a few others as we usually do to get out of here. A couple greasers that we didn't have time for full breakdowns. If you want more games, just let me know in the comments. But we took Tennessee Martin plus 2.5. It's actually plus 3 right now against SEMO. So you can get that at a better number. Took Central Michigan, Ball State under 143.5 and haven't hit anything in the prop market. We will be doing that right after this video. It'll be in Discord if you want it. But all right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. But until then, good luck and have a good day.